We often talk about illegal immigration along our southern border with Mexico. However, there is a strong threat from terrorists looking to enter this country through the northern border with Canada. Our border with Canada currently has unacceptable level of security, with only 32 of the 4,000 miles secure. ICE has said that half of the 47,000 illegals removed that entered through the Canadian border were criminal offenders. Joining me now to discuss this is Ryan Mauro. He is the National Security Analyst for the Clarion Project. Ryan, you know what, everybody always focuses on the South, man, but I've been to both. And to me, the northern border is scarier than the South.
Yeah, a lot of officials will say it's actually less secure than the Mexican border, and we know more terrorists have come through the Canadian border that we've detected. And there was a study done in 2012 that found that over 250 terror suspects, people actually linked to a case of terrorism, had gotten into the United States, gone through a point of entry, and they had an 86% success rate. 86% of the time someone connected to a terrorist case tries to get into the U.S., they accomplish it.
I don't think people realize that Canada is such a hotbed for terror. I mean, what's your experience with this?
Well, say the U.S. government blocks you from coming in, which is something that we're doing less and less of, by the way. Right. But then you can just go into Canada and then come across the northern border, specifically in the Niagara Falls, the New York area, and terrorists have done that. That is not a theoretical thing. The Millennium Bomb Plot of 2000, that is one example. Another example is this Jamaat al-Fukra group that has something like 3,000 operatives in the United States. They tried to carry what was going to be basically Canada's 9/11 in 1991, and they were coming over the northern border into the U.S., and that's when we caught them.
And now we got this Prime Minister up there, this new guy who I think is Obama light, and he's taking in all these refugees. Right, and so we're opening ourselves like mad. But you got names. I want you have names on a list. Go ahead, go to town. Tell these people what it is that you found out.
Sure. You always talk about the vetting process. We've got an amazing example in an article at clarionproject.org where guess who the new liaison to the Muslim American community is that was chosen by the White House. It's a man named Zaki Barzinji, and he is the grandson of a Muslim Brotherhood terror suspect. Now, at that point, you might be saying, well, that's his grandfather. Well, this guy actually led the youth wing of a Muslim Brotherhood front organization, as identified by the U.S. government. So the U.S. government identifies this group as a Muslim Brotherhood front organization, then chooses someone that served as one of its officials as the liaison to the Muslim American community.
You know, I interviewed a guy from CAIR yesterday, which we're going to actually play tomorrow. And the reason why we have to play it tomorrow is this guy will not come on the show with you or Brigitte Gabriel. Okay? He said, I'm not, and not even in a segment, he won't let me play it on the same day that you're on.
Oh, so he sets the rule.
Or that she's on. I let it go because I wanted to get stuff out of this guy. I asked him the question, why is CAIR not marked as a terror group? And he gave me actually I said, what do you say to people who say you guys are connected to terror group? And he said, you know what, if we were connected to terror groups, FBI would have marked us that way. What's the disconnect there, man?
No, well, it's because the Muslim Brotherhood is not designated as a foreign terrorist organization. So you can be a group that operates as a Brotherhood front, and you can do so legally in the United States until the authorities catch you doing something like giving a check to Hamas, which has happened, but it hasn't happened with CAIR. At least the evidence hasn't surfaced to the point where they've been prosecuted. But there's all sorts of issues going on where you have members of Congress pushing for the Brotherhood to be designated as a foreign terrorist organization. Obama administration is probably not going to go along with that.
Right.
And then there's also scandal where there's a Homeland Security whistleblower that talked about how the databases he created of extremist organizations had to be deleted because they're not listed as a terrorist organization.
But the part I guess that I can't get my hands around, and I know viewers can't, is why is there the resistance to mark them as a terror group?
Two reasons. One is political influence. The individual I mentioned before comes from a family that donates a lot to political campaigns. Oh, and so it's very often both sides of the aisle. You'll see members of these organizations that have extremist histories meeting with Republican and Democratic officials, and they say, all right, we may know about their extremist history, but if we need to get the Muslim American votes and we need to not appear Islamophobic, we need to win their approval. And these organizations very often will point to a group like Al-Qaeda and ISIS and say, hey, look how bad those guys are. By comparison, we're not so bad. The Muslim Brotherhood is your moderate solution to ISIS.
You've been doing this now for quite some time, and Clarion's been around. I mean, in doing all the research, and I know you go around, you train people about what to look for, et cetera, so forth. In all the time that you've been doing this, is this the most dangerous that you've ever seen it?
Yes, because we can't even talk about it. I mean, look at what the CAIR official was trying to do with you, where he doesn't want to come into a situation where he's held accountable by someone who's actually studied the evidence that has made us come against CAIR. Why, it's made the Justice Department say that they're an entity of the U.S. Muslim Brotherhood. You know that the FBI's official policy is not to use CAIR as a liaison partner because of evidence linking them to Hamas?
And meanwhile, we can't mark them. And, you know, I want to be very clear about something, specifically about you. We've had conversations before. I've had you on the show plenty of times, and we've talked about Trump's idea for having a temporary ban on Muslims. And so a perfect indication that you are just not some hater who hates Muslims. You have said many a times you think it's a bad idea because you know people of the Muslim persuasion, Muslim religion, that you said, hey, they could really help us defend against the terror.
And we work with them. We have Muslims on our board. I get intelligence from Muslim sources all the time. I've given intelligence to the authorities based on people who I felt were a threat to Muslims, and I've given that to the authorities. I'm passionately pro-Muslim, but these Islamist groups will go after not just me as Islamophobic, they'll go after other Muslims as Islamophobic, because it doesn't have to make sense, they just need the slur out there.
We only got 15 seconds. Obama is pushing so heavily for all these refugees to get in before the end of the summer. Why do you think he's doing that? What's the big deal for him to get all the refugees and so many of the Muslims in here? 10 seconds.
There's been enough reports out there where he says, look, the chances of you getting hit by lightning are greater than the threat of terrorism. So to him, it's worth that humanitarian gesture to the world and bringing these people in is an acceptable risk. But we don't have an ideologically based screening system still.
All right, Ryan, thanks for scaring us all. We'll be back.